Imagine that Atlantis rose from the sea, its people alive and thriving. Imagine that they reached out to the rest of the world, offering diplomatic relations, with much to offer in technology and trade. But then, imagine we learned that Atlanteans were not native to Atlantis. Imagine that they had invaded it, inflicting upon its natives the most flawless genocide ever. Imagine that Atlantis, with a tiny fraction of the world's population, was spending as much on its military as the rest of the world combined. Imagine that Atlantis made trade relations contingent upon being allowed to build military bases in their partners' countries, and that within a few years they had 1,000 bases all over the world. Imagine that Atlantis refused to sign the United Nations Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Imagine we discovered that Atlantis had used nuclear weapons against human populations. Imagine that half of all the civilian-owned guns in the world were in Atlantis. Imagine that in any Atlantean town or city, the three most conspicuous establishments were bars, churches, and beauty salons. The bars indicated an unhappy population self-medicating. The churches revealed a populace in the grip of superstition and intolerance. The salons revealed that women's lives were defined by their beauty. Imagine that 1/3 of all Atlanteans were obese. The overindulgence of food further underscoring their misery and need for escapism. Imagine that Atlantis jailed more people than any other country, 5 times greater than the global average. Imagine that half of their prison population came from an underprivileged ethnic group. Imagine that 1/3 of all prisoners were behind bars for crimes that had no victim. Imagine how you would feel about Atlantis. Imagine how you would feel if anyone you loved lived near an Atlantean military base. Imagine how you would feel if Atlantis began waging wars. Imagine that these wars increased Atlantis's control of global resources. Imagine all that. Now you understand how the rest of the world understands the United States of America.